Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Woodstock City Special Council Meeting for Revenue Budget Meeting, February 24th, 2026. This special meeting of Woodstock City Council has been called for the purpose of considering the 2026 revenue budget. This is a hybrid meeting held in person here in council chambers and electronically in accordance with Section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act, and Section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw, and we do not have anyone attending virtually this evening. The meeting's for information and discussion purposes only. No action will be taken as the revenue budget approval is scheduled for the regular meeting of council on March 19th, 2026. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording of this meeting will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page of the city's website. Are there any disclosures of conflict of interest? Seeing none, we will be going as previous years, kind of page by page. I'll call them out as we go under section by section. And opening remarks, Mr. Curry, would you like to say any opening remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Dale, tonight begins Council's deep dive into the revenue fund budget. We'll be doing this over 2 nights and followed up by a third opportunity at the first council meeting in March to review in detail the board budgets. Your administration will come forward with each department budget, review their budget presentation with council, and highlight their additions that they're recommending to council for additions to the base budget. This begins a 4-week review cycle for council to review the content of the revenue fund budget and results in a approval of the budget on the March 19th City Council meeting. And here.
Thank you. So as mentioned, each department head will be making a presentation in the order outlined on the agenda, and we will go through the budget booklet page by page. Council will provide the opportunity to ask questions of staff as we go along. I'd also remind everyone, councillors, to mention the page number as well as the account number on the far left-hand side so everybody can follow along that's pertaining to your question. And let's jump into it. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Director Lesky for Human Resources. And this is on pages 96 and 97 on your book. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Magda Lesky, and I'm here to present the 2026 proposed operating budget for human resources and health and safety. This budget reflects disciplined financial stewardship while responding to increasing workforce complexity, labor pressures, and legislative obligations. Our focus remains on risk management, compliance, and supporting organizational stability across all departments. Human resources and health and safety provide corporate-wide leadership and oversight. We support 3 unionized bargaining units and manage ongoing labor relations matters. We provide support to the Woodstock Library as well as the Woodstock Police Service as required. We oversee recruitment, workforce planning, corporate training, performance management, claims management, occupational health and safety compliance, workplace investigations, and employee wellness programming. Our work directly mitigates financial, legal, and reputational risk for the city. This slide highlights what HR delivered in 2025 and what we are focused on in 2026. The common theme is strengthening compliance, supporting safe and respectful workplaces, and ensuring we have the systems and practices needed to recruit, retain, and support staff effectively. In 2025, We completed the administrative market salary study and begun implementation. This work ensures our compensation practices are evidence-based, defensible, and aligned to municipal market conditions, supporting recruitment, retention, while managing internal equity. We trained all management staff on prevention of workplace violence and harassment, and this directly supports our obligations under Ontario's Occupational Health and Safety Act and strengthens consistent leadership response, documentation, and early intervention. We strengthen accountability for health and safety practices, clarifying expectations, improving follow-through, and reinforcing roles across leadership. The goal is fewer incidents, more consistent reporting, and stronger prevention culture. We updated several HR policies and implemented new ones to reflect operational realities and evolving requirements. This improves clarity for employees and managers, reduces risk, and supports consistent decision-making across departments. We led the creation of departmental safety plans and supported targeted health and safety training. This moves us from general awareness to department-specific prevention, matching controls and training to the actual risk in each work area. In 2026, a key priority is implementing a new human resources information system to replace and streamline current systems. This will improve data integrity, reporting, workflow efficiency, and employee self-service while reducing manual work and improving auditability. Building on management training, we will complete prevention training for all employees. This ensures consistent understanding of rights and responsibilities, reporting pathways, and expected behaviors supporting a respectful workplace culture. We will complete pay equity compliance work. This is essential to meeting Ontario legislative requirements and to ensure our compensation practices remain fair, transparent, and defensible. We'll continue working collaboratively with our union partners through collective bargaining. The objective is stable labor relations, clear language that supports operations, and agreements that are sustainable and aligned with Council's fiscal direction. We'll develop a corporate wellness program with a strong emphasis on support and psychological safety. This is about supporting employee well-being, helping leaders build healthier, higher performing teams, and reducing disability risk over time. Overall, the 2026 plan is focused on strengthening compliance, improving services, and reporting through modern HR systems, and investing in practices that reduce risk and support our workforce, so departments can deliver services to the community effectively. The labor environment continues to grow more complex. We manage collective agreements, and increasing employee and labor relations matters. There have been growth in workplace investigations and compliance-driven processes. At the same time, we are operating in a competitive recruitment environment requiring proactive workforce planning. Health and safety compliance expectations continue to increase with significant accountability requirements, and this context is important when reviewing our budget. The proposed 2026 budget reflects a modest increase of 1.43% over 2025. This increase is primarily driven by statutory benefit adjustments and targeted health and safety staffing support. Overall expense growth remains tightly controlled. The key budget drivers for human resources and the primary cost pressures are statutory and outside municipal control. At the same time, we have reduced discretionary spending. Consulting services have been reduced by $20,000, data processing by 10, and reduction in HR equipment by 14. These reductions demonstrate disciplined financial management while maintaining base service levels. Health and safety reflects targeted staffing adjustments to help manage workload and compliance demands. Equipment expenditures have been significantly reduced following a prior year investment. A modest corporate wellness allocation has been introduced to support proactive health initiatives. This is aimed at providing meaningful resources and promoting healthy habits to attain better physical and mental health outcomes for employees. It's an investment in long-term risk mitigation. Human resources and health and safety are foundational services. We have offset mandatory cost pressures with reductions wherever possible, which reflects financial discipline. Investments are focused on compliance, workplace safety, and labor stability, which protects the city from legal, labor, and compliance exposure. And ultimately, it supports reliable service delivery to residents. But for questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions for the Director of Human Resources? In particular on the presentation before I go to the pages? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the pages. Then on pages 96 and 97, so which is a complete section, any questions of council on any particular line items? Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Anthony, through you. I'm on page 97 on the health and safety. And I noticed this a few times throughout the budget, but you're the first one at the podium, so I'll ask you. Under subscriptions and memberships, so 0313, budgeted $3,000 last year, so far recorded, and I'm assuming most of those invoices would be in, actually spent $973, but we're budgeting 2,000. I'm curious, why budget 2,000 instead of 1,000 when we actually only spent 1,000? Are there some subscriptions and memberships that are every other year? Are, you know, what? Because at a glance, it looks like we budgeted a lot, we didn't need it all, but now we're still asking for more than what we actually spent last year.
No, through Mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor. Yes, you're correct. So some of our memberships and subscriptions are not annual, they're cyclical. So one year we may be under, one year we may be over. It also depends on staff that are coming into the organization. If they're in a year where they must renew, we would be covering that cost. If it's another year where maybe, you know, they just renewed, we might have another 2 years. So we certainly try our best to gauge, but oftentimes it is out of our control because we just don't know all the folks that will be coming in, what levels of qualifications they'll have, or what we will need to do. And then, of course, with the subscription memberships, it's the same thing. So again, for example, like Green Books or things like that, if changes happen, we may need to replace them. If they're steady and there are no changes, we may be able to get away with it for another year.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none? I don't have any, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Karen Houston from Museum, Market Center and Culture. Welcome. Thank you. And this is pages 82 to 84, as well as 88 and 89 for anybody that wants to follow along at home. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, so these are, of course, our two lovely heritage buildings that we're going to be discussing tonight. So highlights from 2025, we started working with museum consultants looking at the space needs for the museum's collection and the addition, so that got underway. A big part of what this past year was about our physics exhibit and the programs we were hoping it was going to be bringing in from the schools. And we based a lot of what the programming that was happening at the museum around that. And that was successful. And we actually had an increase. So this was great. And we sold the exhibit. We also increased the number of adults coming to our heritage skill artisan workshops and adult programming. And of course, we started the process of planning for the 125th. Now, every year I show you some lovely object that has just come into our collection. So this is actually an electric lamp that was originally gas. It was converted and it came from the Ilbury family who used to be local furriers. They were right on the main street when I first came to town. So over the course of the year, our web portal, which has all of our objects, had over 19,000 visitors. We accepted new artifacts into the collection, 366, and we had to deaccession 6. And as I've talked about before, we have to deaccession things. We have no more space. So if there is something that is a good example of something with the provenance, we have to get rid of something that did not have that provenance so that we can find space for it. So there were 9 of those. So here's our lovely science exhibit with loads of kiddos. We started this on Family Day last year, and it was a smash hit. We knew that because the kids destroyed it. That's exactly what happens. You ever gone to the science center? You know it's a success then. So we actually had to call in Adam, who is the person who does the exhibits, fixing things that they had managed to break. So, and it was pretty much like that the whole year. And it wasn't because it wasn't well designed or anything else. It was just, it was getting used. So there are some kids from our summer camp that was actually around that as well. Now, looking at the programming that we did, we were involved in the Upper Thames Water Festival, really good event. Between the people coming in for the event and all of the school kids that they bussed in, a couple thousand people. Fantastic, talking about doing laundry and how did that historically happen. We also worked with the high schools on a World War I program, looking at the soldiers that are actually on our cenotaph and actually researching them and getting them a chance to do that. So they had to do quite a bit of research, and they got a chance to look through some of the panels that we had done for our past exhibits on World War I. Now, we also have started doing a lot more adult programming. So everything from our lunch and learn 6 times a year, the doors open events, our escape rooms, all of these things, as well as Carrie going out almost every month, once if not twice, to the local senior centers, or I'm sorry, the retirement homes, that kind of thing. So it's been good. Oh, and I didn't put the full information here, sorry. Okay, so it's been for a long time that the museum's programming has been about 30%, but that used to be mainly kids. That is not the case anymore. About 1/3 of that 1/3 is now adults. And it's because of all the programming that we're doing. So it's quite different for our staff that's doing programming, because it's you're doing the 2 bookends more than what we have in the past. But because we weren't finding as many schools coming, we had to pivot. We had to figure out other ways to actually get people in, as well as the fact that this year our numbers for education have gone up as well. So I am happy about that. So that was good. And then the total for the year, we're back up to what we were pre-COVID. It took a heck of a long time to get there, but we are. So I'm very happy about that in total. All right, what projects do we have coming up? Well, my CMOG grant says that this year, 2026, is when I need a new strategic plan. I will be working on this with the museums committee as well. I have a meeting, or it's a teleconference call with CMOG about what their expectations are. However, a lot of it is pre-described and we just fill in the blanks. With the addition to the museum, we are talking to the consultants about phasing and costing of that. So looking at the most cost-effective ways, but also what is exactly what we need and nothing else. We have also been working this year on our citywide 125th and working with the events that are happening. Right now, we have a Bernadette Smith exhibit on. We are really focusing for the education this year on Mayor for a Day, partly because of the Bernadette Smith exhibit, but also for the fact that it's an election year. So it ties in everything really nice, seeing as Bernadette Smith was voted mayor of Woodstock in 1951. And yeah, 75 years ago. So there you go. Also, we are going to be working with the Oxford Weavers, Land Loom in 27. Also in 27, as we'll talk about later, the Cultural Master Plan. So I want to highlight some of the changes that you may see and wondering what that's about. So miscellaneous receipts, that's the 10,000 that we got from Markham Museum when they bought the science exhibit from us. And then the money that we got from that, we want to put into the exhibit reserve fund so that in the future, if there are traveling exhibits, we can put this money towards it. Expenses. So you will notice that there is an increase of a certain amount this year for the museum. Part of this is due to the fact that since basically we hired her, Darielle has been basically, I think it was 3/4 of her wages came from the museum and a quarter came from the market center because she was also the rental person. Now that we have Keziah, all of Darielle's wages are coming out of the museum. So there is a bump there, but there also means that there's a lowering of the costs coming from the market center, as well as the fact that with the changes to Darielle's position, her rate went up through GE, and all of that kind of comes out in the wash. Market center, talking about the rentals there. We had more bookings this year, 19% up, mainly in the Thursday rentals that we were trying to promote last year. Also, they're running more matinees on Saturdays and Sundays now at the theater for their own shows due to the fact of just demand. What this leads to is fewer blackout dates and days when the theater is empty. In 2026, we are just about to have a delivery of the actual screen and projector for the TIFF film. Long time coming, but it's coming on March break, so there we go. As well as the fact that our rental coordinator is now fully trained and doing a fantastic job. We're really happy. And of course, additions to base budget. So this is looking at the cultural master plan. This was something that was identified in the city's strategic plan quite a ways back. And this is one way that we can hope that in 27 that we can actually look at it doing it. So 50,000 this year, 50 next, in the idea of actually trying to figure out what is it that we actually want to happen in Museum Square with the redevelopment, whatever it might be, as well as and the broader culture in Woodstock, to have a better sense of how can we actually address some of the issues that there are and having the public help us figure out what they're looking for. And I think that's it for me. Yes, that's my last one.
Thank you. Any questions on the presentation? Councillor Schenberg.
From page number 83, the museum building repairs and maintenance, so it's line 0308. Does that number include repairing the elevator, or what's the latest on that?
Your worship, through to the question. No, the actual elevator repairs is coming out of capital budget, but that is still not fixed. We are still short our elevator, and not happy about that. But yes, that will be coming out of a different part of the budget.
Okay, thank you. We can do sections 82, 83, and 84 all together, so everybody's aware. Before we move along to the other section. Councillor Leatherborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 83, the very last line, I was just curious, 0493 Museum New Horizons Senior Grant, just what that was.
Your worship, through to the question. So this is for the 125th. So this is the idea of, we wanted to have a way to showcase the 125th exhibit that we had in the museum, but at events. So we are working or hoping to work with Magdalene to actually have something that is waterproof, that you can put out. It's not going to fall over in the wind, because that's always the big trouble when you try to do outside exhibits. And so that's what that's for.
Thank you. Councillor Schenberg.
As someone who sits on the museum committee, the one thing I was noted about the physics display that went to Markham is the fact that they actually came down and picked it up and brought it back to Markham as part of the overall price. So there wasn't a travel charge on there. My question, however, though, is on page 82. The Young Canada Works program budget for last year was 25,000. 5,600 was spent, and this year the budget's 15,000. Explain what that is used for.
All right, so this is for our summer student grants, and I was hoping last year, when I originally put it in at 25, so that was before the beginning of the actual year, that we would be writing a grant for an intern, and that did not happen just because of my personal life and things that were happening last year. So this year, we will be asking for it, but for a shorter period of time, because part of what this person is going to be doing is helping us with the actual activities for the 125th. So it didn't make it sense to have it for as long a period of time.
Thank you. Counselor Martin.
Thank you very much, through you, Mayor Anchoni. My question is about the cultural master plan request for funding. If I recall, and we've had this conversation before, if I recall, it was proposed back in 2012 or 13 to do a cultural master plan, and it was turned down at that time. Council did not approve that. How long has it been since we've had a cultural master plan?
Your worship, through to the question. So cultural master plans really got started generally, like in the, between 2000 and 2010. That's when they became big. And part of the reason why it was, I think, turned down before was there was an idea that the county was going to do it. And I don't believe that occurred. That was about, yeah, it was around that time period. It was turned down for me in 2014. And I think that that might have been partly why. And that's just not something that they do. So if this is something that we want for Woodstock, then it makes sense that we do it.
Ask a follow-up? So then, we have a number of cultural assets in the downtown. What drives any cultural collaboration now without having, like, there isn't really an active plan for you right now, is there?
Your worship, through to the question, no, there isn't. So the idea is that that was part of my question when we were originally talking about this. Did we want a cultural plan or did we want a cultural master plan? If you're looking at a cultural plan, it's just looking at the different entities you already own as a city. If you're talking about a master plan, you're talking about all of it. You're talking about the dance groups, you're talking about Long McQuaid, you're talking about all of it and mapping out and getting a sense of what is actually here and what is it that we need? Where are the holes? Where are the things and how do we work jointly? What are the things that all those organizations and different groups need?
Just to follow up, it is a cultural master plan that is being proposed. Okay, thank you.
And just to add on that, it was 2014. I was on council. I remember those discussions and I do remember a lot of discussions about county at that point in time and what kind of involvement, but just for council's information. Anyone else? Again, on pages 82, 83, and 84. Seeing none. Okay, going to 88 and 89. So Market Center. You already answered my question about TIFF and the screens and everything else, so. Counselor Leathermore?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is it too soon to get a little bit of a timeline when those movies will be in-house?
Your worship, through to the question. We've been having so many troubles trying to get this in here. I am scared to tell you. The hope is now, if everything goes according to plan, that we will absolutely start in September. We are starting. That is the goal. And boy, I hope we made it. So yes, that is the plan.
No pressure.
No, none.
We're all excited to see it, though, I gotta
Exactly.
say. We are all excited to go back to that. Counselor Shanberg.
Yeah, from the mayor through to the director, I guess that just the Cole's notes question or answer to this one is, how does it break down between the theater Woodstock using the facility and the city of Woodstock having X number of dates for the entire year, just so people who are watching get an
Absolutely.
understanding, because we got a significant tenant there, but they don't get 365 days of the year.
Your worship, through to the question. So we have an agreement that was signed almost exactly 30 years ago with the Little Theater. It is a 40-year contract, and they get the first 180 days. So that is every day that they have a show or they're rehearsing or they're putting up things on the stage, all of that. Those are days they get. And then after that, we have the weekends that are left pretty much that we can book in what we want. And so being smart, a lot of the days that they have picked are weekends because of course that's when they want to have their shows and other things. It does make sense. So there is not a ton of weekends that we get that we don't have rentals in because there are other groups that are looking for them.
So just for those at home, those aren't necessarily 180 days of the first 180 days of a year. It's
No.
just 180
Oh,
days.
sorry.
That's
Yes,
okay.
they get to pick
Yeah,
which of
that's fine.
those days in the calendar year
Yes,
that are
you
of
get
use to
first
them,
dibs.
not altogether.
Yep.
My apologies.
Anyone else? Counselor Martin?
One last quick one, page 88, repairs to buildings, 0308. 10,000 budgeted last year. We spent just shy, like $15 short of 10,000, but we're budgeting $23,000. As this is a base budget, what is expected to be happening in there that is
Yeah.
different than last year?
Your worship through to the question. So what it is that, for instance, I have a fire door that it's not just the door, it's the frame around it that has come out. And the fire door is wonked and everything that is done work with the wall right beside it. That's $4,000 to get the new door and to do all of that work for it, which is below our threshold for capital. And there's lots of little jobs like that. So because we're going to be starting TIF, I would like to try to get some of that done before we have a huge new influx of people in the building. And a lot of it isn't, highly decorative or, pretty. It's stuff that just needs to happen.
Thank you. Anything else for the manager? Museum, Market Center and Culture? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is our Economic Development Commissioner, Brad Hammond. Now, this is for pages 90 to 91 and then 93 for those following at home. Welcome.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be presenting the budget for the Economic Development Department for the first time as Development Commissioner. I did have the opportunity a few years ago to present, and I'll admit I may have gone a little bit long. So hand to God, I'm going to do my best to be as brief as possible this year. So the economic development in terms of key services, really what we focus on is focus on creating a balanced and diversified economy within Woodstock, whether it's commercial growth, industrial growth, residential growth, or new businesses to the community. And we do this by providing policy advice to council or policy options to council rather, with the goal of creating new assessment, new jobs, and new social opportunities in the community. If you look at what the department does, you can kind of divide it into to about 9 different buckets or honeycombs, if you will. Why the bee? Because who works harder than a honeybee? Our department does. So business retention is a big part of our department, and it's something that we want to focus even more on this year. Business retention is really built on the idea that it's easier to get a new customer than it is to go, or it's easier to keep an existing customer rather than to go out and find a new one. And we do that by meeting regularly with businesses within the community and helping them solve barriers that might be in front of them to growth. The other side of that is business attraction, and that's the going out and trying to find new businesses from across Canada or from around the world and convince them Woodstock is the place for them to set up their business. We do this through some activities with our partners across the county as well through the Southwestern Ontario Marketing Alliance. Industrial land sales has always been a big part of our department. We're going through a bit of a transition right now, and it's for a period of time, it will become a smaller part. We've got about 14 acres of unsold serviced industrial land right now in our inventory to sell. And this means in all likelihood, the cupboard will be bare for 2 or 3 years before the Corlett and Elliott farms come on out in Eastwood in 2028. Small business support, you'll hear from Sean McNamara shortly, as well as downtown development, Carrie Baird, and physician recruitment, you'll hear from Christy Hans on their trials and tribulations. Municipal real estate, that's kind of the land outside of industrial real estate that we get involved in purchasing and selling on behalf of the city. Properties like the TriStar liquidation building next to City Hall here, or 16 Graham Street when we were involved in the disposition of that property. It also includes lots of bits and little pieces across the city, laneways here and there that occasionally come up from time to time, and our department takes that on. Film attraction is a relatively new initiative for our department. Lisa Lama has taken that on. And bit by bit, it's growing year over year. And then finally, other duties as assigned. Quite often within an organization like the city, there's lots of tasks that don't fit nicely into one department or another. And as it turns out, you can tie almost anything back to economic development. So we're always happy to help out with those one-off initiatives as well. Much of what we do in terms of investment attraction is through our partnerships. It allows us to stretch our budget and our human resources further and be active at far more events than we could ever attend on our own. So through the Oxford Connection, that's the group that we receive funding from the County of Oxford for. We work with the other EDOs from across the county and attend between 2 and 3 trade shows a year. We also usually hold a FAM tour of one form or another where we bring realtors in from outside to showcase the community. Other major venue that we use for investment attraction is the Southwestern Ontario Marketing Alliance, or SOMA. Not sure exactly where that acronym came from, but it's been around for about 21 years now. And through that, the SOMA group attends 4 to 5 trade shows a year itself. It's also a member of 2 other organizations called the Ontario Food Cluster and the Ontario Manufacturing Communities Alliance. And these are 2 organizations that span the province based on the idea of cooperation again, or friendly competition, if you will. So as a result of that, there's about 13 or 14 trade shows that we're represented at in any one year without actually having to physically be at those shows. It's a friendly agreement that if you're not at the show, those that were there share the leads when they come back, and becomes every person for themselves after that. Economic development in 2025, by the numbers, we had 50 unique investment inquiries into our office last year. That resulted in 2 land sales, equaling about 10 acres of land and $5 million in revenue. One of those land sales is still open and expected to close within the next month or so. Not directly related to our department, but certainly connected to the sale of land on LEA Street. Industrial building permits hit a high last year, or a high for quite a while anyway. $135 million in industrial building permits, and that's a big number for a community of our size. There were 4 films shot in Woodstock last year, 2 through Bell One, 1 through Amazon, and 1 was a production from Sheridan College. We attended through our partnerships 3 domestic trade shows and 10 international trade shows last year through the partnerships that I mentioned. We retired 1 staff person and we hired 1 staff person as well. So Mr. Magyar, Len Magyar, left us after 40 years of the city, and we were lucky enough to steal Filippo D'Amelio away from our engineering department. So Filippo started with us in November and has settled in great and is doing great work already. And finally, we landed 1 new tenant in our building. The Woodstock District Chamber of Commerce moved in December to share space with us. That relationship's already reaping rewards. There's been 4 or 5 instances just in that time where small business has introduced someone to the chamber or vice versa. So rather than having to send someone down the street, you can just walk them across the foyer to the person that they need to meet with. So that's been a great relationship. Priorities for 2026. We are quite confident we'll sell the remaining 14 acres of industrial land that we have before the year is out. We're also quite confident now at this point that we'll be able to offer 760 Juliana for sale through a request for proposal. So that's the property that we've spent too many years on, trying to, 4 or 5, trying to have it upzoned to high density residential to kind of take full advantage of the potential that property has. As I mentioned, a very important part of our strategy or plans for 2026 is to undertake an economic development strategy. So funding was approved at Thursday night's council meeting for this. We've also applied for Rural Ontario Development Program money for this, or funding rather. RODP is the acronym. We're quite confident that money will come through as well. So that will give us a pot combined of about $100,000 to put toward the strategy. Why it's important is we haven't done an economic development strategy for about a decade. So it's at least 3 or 4 years overdue, and there's been a lot of changes in our department during that time. We brought on new staff, we brought on downtown development, and frankly, over the next few years, our focus is going to change as we wait for the next business park to come on. So it's an important part of guiding our department for the next five years or so. We're also hoping to develop implementation guidelines for the new CIP programs that were presented at council Thursday night. We'll likely start with something like the physician recruitment forgivable loan program, as that's the one that's been waiting the longest to have implementing guidelines behind. We're hoping to hold an event that we haven't held before, a trade localization event for manufacturing. So this is kind of the idea that many manufacturers within our community are very good at what they do and they're very focused on what they do, but they may not necessarily know about the goods and services their neighbors provide or opportunities for partnership. So we're hoping to bring 60 or so of our manufacturers together in a room to get them to know each other a little bit better and where there's opportunities for them to work together to strengthen both of their businesses. And finally, Lisa Lama is hoping to hold a film familiarization tour or a FAM tour. Those are two difficult words to put in order, but again, that'll be a first time for that event as well, with the goal of hoping to attract more film investment into Woodstock. In terms of line items, I've focused here just on the ones where there's been a significant change up or down. Many parts of our budget are fairly consistent, but the transfer in from industrial land reserve, I think that shows in the budget in front of you $60,000. I had emailed our treasury department after the council meeting last week. 50 is what we asked for and 50 is what we'll need. So that will be slightly less than was asked. Point out that there is no impact on the levy because it's coming from reserve. Office supplies were up by about $1,000 to $4,500. That really reflects just the fact that we have combined now the small business office supply account, the downtown development office supply account, and our own office supply account into one single account. So there's been some efficiencies there. Advertising is being reduced by $20,000 to $0. That does not mean that I'm not doing advertising, but more recently, the line between advertising and publicity and public relations is becoming more and more blurred. So I'm opting to roll that into a single line item rather than keeping two separate line items. If you're doing the math on that, you'll notice the math doesn't necessarily math 1 year to the next. There's about $6,500 more than those combined accounts would have been last year. That's because we're hoping to do more recognition for businesses that are opening. We're going to have a number of plant openings and ribbon cuttings and so forth. And we want to make a practice of giving a gift to celebrate those events. So that's what's reflected in there. Economic development marketing plan or strategy I've already talked about, and the film location expenses would go to that FAM tour or familiarization tour that we're hoping to host. Final slide, additions to base budget. So it's a fairly big ask. There's a room that's part of our office. It's this kind of the center of the market building. There's so much potential with that room. It's a great big cathedral of a space. And as a result, to turn it into a proper boardroom and the type of setting where we'd like to host guests and take better advantage of what's there, it does need some work. Acoustical panels, a divider wall so the custodial cart isn't out visible to people that are in the room, training tables and chairs, boardroom table, and AV equipment. So that, based on estimates, that adds up to about $65,000. We're quite confident the room's going to get well used. We've had partners from within the community use it already. I know city departments have used it for a meeting in the state that it is, and I think the utilization of it just gets better and better with a more usable setup. As a note, as of today, we filed an application with the Phase 2 of Rural Ontario Development Program. We're hoping to get about 35% funding for this project, but that we'll find out whether we win or lose on that 2 or 3 months from now. So that's all that I have to present. Happy to answer any questions either on the presentation or our budget itself. And I was told I came in just under 10, so for me, that's quite a feat.
Couple of times I went to the button for prior. No, I'm kidding. No.
Yeah.
No. Well done. Anything on the presentation first before I go to the pages? I guess maybe on the presentation, I'll ask a question. With the addition to the base budget, the room, basically the boardroom, we still going ahead with that even if we are not successful? Is that the plan?
Your worship, through your question, there would be no budget for that, so it'd be difficult to go ahead. I suppose if we got the funding midway through and it hadn't been funded at this point, we might come back to, or we would come back to council rather and say, you know, this new opportunity's come up. But right now, if that project doesn't get funded, the room will stay essentially the way it is right now.
Which I expected.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's get into pages. Anything on pages 90 and 91? Seeing none. Oh, Counselor Sandberg.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe just a question of clarification to our director. I noticed there's a line for $2,000 for what's called trade show job fair on page 91, line 0440. Is that part of the Career Expo on March 26th, or is that a separate event?
Historically, that's the Career Expo that's held in March with Community Employment Services. That's the type of event we would use it for. We've done career fairs in the past as well. So yes, the short answer would be yes.
Thank you. Anything else on pages 90 and 91? Then to 93 for land sales. Any questions on page 93?
Yeah.
Well, seeing none, I guess I will mention too, it was your predecessor. Of course, we got invited to Japan this past year to Osaka and just went to the Emperor's birthday with a consulate general on Friday night. And they called Woodstock and myself out by name on the stage to thank us for attending to their invite in Japan. So in front of a room full of everybody from the province to everything, it was nice to hear Woodstock get named, and this is through SOMA, of course, for those wondering. So this has really put us on the map.
That goes along.
So I had very many MPPs coming up to me afterwards and asking about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is downtown development. So the downtown development officer, Carrie Baird, welcome. This is on page 91 for those following.
Righty. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I am Carrie Baird, your downtown development officer. I like to remind you of what my job role is. So those are my key services. Part of my job is to bring new businesses to downtown. Ways that happens is by working with commercial. We do have commercial realtors in Woodstock, working with them, seeing what is available, seeing who's looking and what people are looking for. Market downtown Woodstock to potential businesses, coordinate efforts with the BIA. And as a side note, we've done a very positive strategic plan and had a very successful board meeting with the BIA. So go downtown. And I manage the community improvement plan, which is the monies that you have set aside that helps property owners improve their facades, their increased residential intensification. I implement larger strategies that attract new businesses to downtown. And I also assist new businesses and potential new businesses with navigating city services. It's one of the things that I enjoy the most, and it's really where I get to see how the city of Woodstock shines in our departments of licensing, building permits, that people really feel that they get a very white glove service here, feel that people are very responsive. So it's really nice to be in my role that I can work with somebody from the time they're talking to a realtor right through the process to when they open their doors. My 2025 successes, we've increased marketing and activation initiatives with that super cute cow with a little hard hat on because we were mitigating construction. And so we did a Spot the Cow initiative that was run totally under the downtown development budget. We hid 32 cows in downtown Woodstock. Lots of people went to look for cows. Lots of people went to look for cows. We had 10 that were winners. They had little hearts on their bellies. If the person found one with a heart, they were able to turn it in. People were then able to get a $25 gift card for one of our downtown businesses. This was so successful, it's coming back in 2026. It was a really reasonable initiative from a cost perspective and really got people walking around. My favorite story in this, a teenager saw it on Instagram, wanted to go for a walk with her mom. The mom was going to go later that day to London to look for a suit because the husband needed a new sport coat. And she's like, I totally forgot that Zabians moved across the street after the fire. So, it's really one of our challenges is reminding people your downtown doesn't look like 1982, but it does have a lot of wonderful, wonderful things to go and see. Um, I said survived because we survived phase 1 and 2 of Streetscape. I have to say, after being in the first winter of it, marked improvement from a snow removal standpoint and from a standpoint of being able to use the sidewalks, especially on your east end. You'll see that there's a very big difference between the side that's been completed and the side that hasn't. Construction is difficult for everybody, but we did survive, and people are very, very thankful that it was done. Commencement of the work on the Oxford Hotel, I keep reminding of that one because that one's really somebody that I've worked with since April of 2024, and I know has worked, and it's really nice that commercial tenants will be moving in there shortly. Many new restaurants in downtown Woodstock that are making people come back downtown. And we've expanded our participation with Tourism Oxford, which increases the reach of downtown businesses and activations to the whole county. One of the great things was Retro Rewind. We are going to bring that back in 2026. It was a very targeted initiative that had like New Kids on the Block, your old favorites, and it was a very fun retro campaign that had a very broad reach to it, and it was a very small spend for my from the downtown budget. So really, the only thing I've really done in my budget is I no longer have to be responsible for my own office supplies. And I have moved money from advertising to events because we are event-based. It's really, and I find that, and it actually reflects what money was spent in 2025. There is more of the events are really what people are looking for. And I believe that is my last slide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for downtown development? Councillor Schanberg.
Yeah, question from the mayor through to Ms. Baird. The Thursday lunch hour concerts, will they continue in 2026?
Through your worships and councilors question, yes, that is part of the downtown development event budget. And they're coming back. That's actually a neat sorry to go on. That's a neat program because we also actually receive money back. And I don't have a revenue line, so it actually makes money for the BIA because it comes out of the downtown development budget and the sponsorship goes to the BIA. So it's kind of a nice win-win. And they're fun.
They are spent many Thursday afternoons out there for lunch. Yes. So anyone else on page 91, of course, we're talking here. Seeing none. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up is Ms. Hans, physician recruitment, and this is 91 and 92. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to jump right to the 2026 budget, which you can see at the bottom here is very similar to 2025 with a slight decrease overall. There's only one line item that's increased significantly, and that's academic supports, which is funding for students and residents. It's important to note at the bottom as well that over half of the total budget is coming from the reserve fund. So any forgivable loans or moving allowances that are paid out in 2026 will come entirely from the reserve fund. In an effort to keep the budget as low as possible, we've decreased career fairs, and we have not added any provisions to either of the reserve funds in 2026. A recently approved amendment to the Community Improvement Plan will now allow us to advance the forgivable loan program. So full program guidelines will be coming to council shortly. However, for tonight, as a top level summary, this program proposes that we offer $30,000 forgivable loans to family physicians who commit to family practice here for a minimum of 5 years. And you can see at the bottom here how that value compares to just a few of the dozens of others communities across Ontario that offer similar programs. So I mentioned earlier the increased academic supports. That increase comes entirely from this $9,600 that we propose to assist students and residents with accommodations while they're training here. We want to have more students training here, and we want them to have the best possible experience while they're here. So that hopefully when they're done training, they will decide to stay and establish as practices in Woodstock. Right now, our students are only here for 1 to 2 months at a time. So as you can imagine, it's very difficult to find a short-term lease, if not almost impossible for 1 to 2 months. However, Airbnbs and hotels are not really within their student budgets, especially when you consider that they're already paying rent in London or whatever community that they're based out of for the majority of their training. We know that some students do not like commuting from London, particularly in the winter months. I, for one, can understand that. And we have had some students that have canceled rotations here due to lack of housing options. If students do want to stay in Woodstock while they're learning here, we also want to take that opportunity to showcase not only what our hospital has to offer and our medical community, but what living here, living in Woodstock has to offer. So we want them to get to sample some of the local restaurants. We want them to maybe attend a local community event like Cowapalooza or Fall Fest, depending on the time of year. Those are just a couple of examples, but my point is we want to fully immerse them in the whole community. And unfortunately, we do not have any city or hospital-owned housing to use for this purpose, as some communities do. Funding for academic supports also goes towards bursaries for Discovery Healthcare Camp. This camp aims to inspire local high school students to pursue careers in medicine. So this will be the third time that this camp has been offered this summer at Woodstock Hospital. It's a very popular camp. Registration usually fills within hours of registration opening. This is the Schulich Medicine class of 2028. As you can see here, almost a quarter of that class are from Southwestern Ontario. However, none of those students are from Oxford County. So this is something we hope to improve upon in the future, at least in part through initiatives like Discovery Camp. And finally, if there's anyone from our community who is already pursuing a career in medicine, we want to first identify them and potentially support them through a scholarship and use that opportunity to tell them the benefits of practicing here, maybe even have them do a portion of their training here. Again, this is not a new initiative, not new for 2026, but something we hope to continue. This is a press release from just last month from the Ministry of Health. As you can probably guess from the headline, Woodstock was identified as one of the new teaching clinics. So what does that actually mean? Well, Schulich Medicine out of Western will begin offering a family medicine training program right here in Oxford County in 2027. Now, this is different from the students we currently have that are only here for 1 to 2 months at a time and periodically. Now, on top of that, we will have our own residents that will do the majority of their training right here in Oxford County. So the bulk or all of their 2-year training program. And this will be up to 6 residents at a time when the program reaches capacity. So obviously it's something we're really excited about. It's something we've been working towards with partners like family physicians and the local hospitals since we started actively recruiting. And establishing this residency program in the county will not only increase the likelihood of recruitment, but it will also help support our local hospitals and patients. You don't have to take too much away from this. I just put it up here to show what the 2-year program will look like. The really nice thing is that all of the rotations can be offered in Woodstock. So not just family medicine. One of the hospitals pretty much provides every rotation they need to do throughout the 2 years, with the one exception being geriatrics. So we don't have a licensed geriatrician in town. So that is the 1 4-week rotation that would need to be done in London. And finally, I just put this in here to remind everyone why we're doing all this for the local residents in Woodstock and Oxford County that do not have a family physician. Thanks. Questions?
Perfect, thank you. Anyone have any questions on the slides before I go into the book? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Counselor Martin.
Just trying to get your attention
Yeah.
there.
Throw something.
You know what I'm gonna ask because we met not too long ago to discuss it. About a month ago, Sylvia Jones came out and said that she does not support physician recruitment by municipalities. She doesn't think that, sorry, the ministry, I won't put it solely on Ms. Jones, that they don't like the idea of local incentives and that they prefer that we focus on a provincial strategy. So my question is the provincial strategy working for communities like Woodstock? Or is staying the course on physician recruitment and offering incentives really our best opportunity for success? I know it's a loaded question, but she was like, it was a very emphatic announcement and like a little scolding of municipalities, and yet it doesn't feel like there's an alternative.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of municipalities answer publicly in the news that they are going to continue to do so. If she had done more about it and mandated it that no communities could do that, then honestly, that would be great because then we'd all be on a level playing field, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So if you want to be a part and be competitive, I don't see any way around it unless they take it a step further and put legislation forward that will not allow communities to do that. But there have been communities doing it for a long time, and yeah, more so, more and more communities every day, and larger incentives.
Not a follow-up, but a second question. You mentioned city-owned housing, that we don't have city-owned housing here in Woodstock. But I'm curious if you've had a conversation with your peer in downtown development that is evaluating the TriStar building next door right now, and whether that would even be a potential consideration for city-owned housing for short-term students.
I have not, and I actually was thinking when I was putting the presentation together that I hope someone would come forward, and if not something city owned, maybe like a private citizen that would have space that they'd be willing to donate. I know that has happened in some communities. So Brad and I have talked about a couple, or at least one other city owned option, an apartment. And when we ran the numbers, it worked out better to do like Airbnbs or hotels, but I don't know about this other option, so I'll definitely look into that. TriStar, you said? Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else on pages 91 and 92? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Through your worship to Ms. DeHaans, just a question about, I called you DeHaans, Ms. Hans. Not trying to make any assumptions on that. Sorry about that. Oh man, Callie will get a kick out of that one. Regarding the academic supports, the line 0380, when you were speaking about helping support potentially housing and such, are those dollars potentially available for mileage for anybody that would be commuting or looking at commuting, or does that start to muddy the waters a bit?
So Schulich does offer some dollars for that. They do offer a little bit of money for housing as well. So I believe they offer $800 a month. But as you can imagine, that doesn't go very far on hotels or Airbnbs or even a month rent if they could ever find such a short-term lease. So this would be to supplement what they're already getting from Schulich. And I think if they want to drive, then they would take the amount from Schulich, and we would not get into that, would be my suggestion. But because again, I really want the opportunity to have them living here and seeing not just the hospital and the clinics. So that would be my preference, is to have them stay.
Thank you. I'm glad that came up because, well, Counselor Lauder and I sit on the Board of Trust, of course, for the hospital, and we're familiar with this program and really excited to see this coming to the city of Woodstock. So thank you to Schulich and
Can
yes.
I add one other thing
Yeah,
that
you
I
can.
wanted to mention? That reminded me, the housing and the accommodations I'm talking about would be reserved for those students that are coming, that we have now and we will continue to have after the residency program comes into place, and they're only here for 1 to 2 months at a time for the reasons that I mentioned with the difficulties with short-term leases. So when we do have our own residents coming for 2 years, I've talked to other communities, and I feel that the expectation would be on them to sign a lease for 1 or 2 years, just like anyone else would be. And in this sense, that makes sense because they're not also paying rent in London, and they're able to do that. So the dollars that I'm suggesting in academic supports would be reserved for students that are only here for a month or two, and not our own residents that are stationed here.
Thank you for clarifying that. Anyone else for physician recruitment? Physician. I'm gonna say that a few times fast. Seeing none. Thank you very much. Next up, Manager of Small Business Center, Sean McNamara. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Mr. Hammond told me I had 5 minutes and then my screen would go dark. So thankfully I've memorized my, no. I am Sean McNamara, manager of the Small Business Center. There's a lot of information on this page, but it is our 2025 year in review. I will summarize as best I can. We saw an awful lot of people. Initial inquiries, 731 in total. Supported businesses that revisited us, 383, which translated into actual assisted business startups or expansions. And an expansion would be an existing business that offered a new service or product line. We actually saw more expansions than we saw new business startups, but they're lumped in together at 52. There's the breakdown amongst all of the different municipalities. Further demographic breakdown, our regular clients, 63 female, 37% male. Average age is mid-30s, and about 11% of our clients are new to Canada and Oxford County. These are all KPIs that we have to keep and collect and supply to the province. So it's easy for us to provide you with this information. Our consultations take place typically by phone to start, sometimes by Zoom, and certainly in person. And oftentimes it's a combination of all of these different options over the lifespan of each client interaction. Oops. This is the funding breakdown. The province of Ontario gives us 55% of our funding. The County of Oxford, 14%, with the city making up the final 31%. This has been consistent since I've been manager, and I see it being relatively consistent. We hope it's consistent going forward into the future. We have the Starter Company Plus grant program, which is one of our tent poles. We are very fortunate that we get 13 grants, and we fill this program every year. So in 2025, we gave out $65,000. That translates to $5,000 grants times 13 recipients. As a side note, we're also well into our new year. We're giving out $25,000 worth of grants to small businesses tomorrow as well, hoping to anyways. These are some of the grant recipients from across Oxford County. We also have our Summer Company Student Grant Program facilitated by Brenda Tate, my coworker. Again, maxed out there, 6 grants that we receive for Oxford County. We gave it all 6 in 2025 to the tune of $18,000 at $3,000 apiece. Here are all of our grant recipients. They're from across the county. Pretty diverse group, very successful. 20 2025, all of them between the month of May and August generated a combined gross revenue of $16,500. We had our annual Bridges to Better Business event in October. Again, it's networking with purpose. It's speed dating for businesses, so to speak. We also have local politicians, professionals that are there to help. We had Ron Kugler, who is the co-founder of the STEM Camp, speak about marketing initiatives for business and technology. And we also held our very first annual Small Business Awards ceremony. The Small Business of the Year for 2025 was My Kitchen, and PNS Collective Auto Care was the best student business for 2025. Brenda Tate looks after our community engagement in our SBC Live program. She's on the road 2 days a week, every week of the year, working with our community partners and municipalities in their locations. The whole object is there are so many small business owners out there that could use help and support, but they can't leave their businesses. They're the sole individuals there. We meet them where they are and help them out in the workplace. So we engaged 343 businesses that we visited or re-engaged in the year. And we've maintained our motto. A lot of small business owners feel very isolated and alone. So our motto is, you're not alone, make us your first call. We're here for you. We have an excellent, and it took a bit of rehabilitation over the years, but we now have excellent relationships with all of our community partners, all 5 municipal chambers, the 4 Oxford BIAs, Community Futures, Rural Oxford, Community Employment Services, Tourism Oxford, and Fanshawe, to name a few. An exciting new initiative for 2026 is called the Foodpreneur Advantage. This was founded by the London Small Business Centre. It's a free Ontario-based initiative supporting food and beverage entrepreneurs. They offer workshops, webinars, and specialized training. It's there to help start and scale their food-based businesses. It's offered at the Hive, which is at Western Fair. They have a number of commercial kitchens. They have a number of people who are actively engaged in food-based businesses there. So there's a lot of peer mentorship that goes on. It covers all kinds of topics, regulatory compliance. A lot of people are subject matter experts in what they do, but they don't know the finer points. So product packaging and the regulations, marketing. So we began that initiative with them on January the 1st. We were in negotiations for a good chunk of 2025. And we're now a participating member, and we work hand in hand with them. So we now can take any food-based business in Oxford and Woodstock area and help them by passing them on to the experts there. So it's a very collaborative and collective agreement between us. We have a number of other innovations in 2026. Again, podcasts, job fairs, business boot camps. We've escalated our involvement in the Outdoor Farm Show in collaboration with our community partners. The Chamber, Brad referenced that earlier. We are doing incredible things now that the Chamber is across the foyer from us. Again, we have engagement with our high schools, engagement with the community colleges. We have Gather and Grow. Brenda Tate in our office had a small business breakfast on a monthly basis. She's now partnered with the Woodstock Chamber to do that every month. We're actively involved in the Oxford County Career Expo, which is through CES. And we've also now finally developed in conjunction with the ministry our Legacy Business Succession Support Program. So any business out there that's looking for any kind of succession planning or succession support can now come to us, and we now have a formal structured program that we can offer to them to help them. And I think that's really important because I know there's a lot of legacy businesses in Oxford County that simply don't know what to do. And the longer they hold on to their businesses, they're actually devaluing them. When we've got a lot of young, innovative people that are able to step in and take over and put their mark on it and keep their businesses going. Budget changes. A lot of negatives. That's just because we've looked at our budget historically and realized that we can reduce our meetings and lunches by $500. We can reduce our mileage. We can reduce our advertising, and that's a large amount to reduce our advertising. But the reason we can do that is because of our increased collaboration with the other community partners. We can share in collective advertising, which reduces our costs, and we're not standing alone. Our conferences have increased by $1,500 because we attended for the first time the Ontario Small Business Conference in Toronto in October during Canada Small Business Week. But we're also going to be finally attending the SBC Ontario, Small Business Ontario Organization Conference in Markham in May. So again, we want to make sure that we're a part of these conferences so that we can bring any information back to Oxford County. We've also reduced special events by $2,000. Again, as a result of our collaboration with our community partners, it's more of a shared expense, collaborative, so that allows us to actually reduce some of our charges there. And that's my presentation.
A little
Happy to
bit
take
longer
any
than
questions.
5 minutes, but okay.
Longer than 5 minutes, but shorter than 10.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Any questions on the presentation first before we get into the pages? Councillor Schanberg.
Yeah, Mr. McNamara, you put up a pie chart about the percentages that you get from the city and from the county and from the province. It's still more than 50% provincial funding for your association. What actually are the percentages? You did have a graphic up there.
Yeah, so it's 55% of our funding comes from the province, 14% comes from the County of Oxford, 31% comes from the city.
When those numbers are actually broken down between receiving money from the townships, therefore, as far as the county dollars go, do you think that there's an equal split there, or should the counties be, or townships be paying more? Woodstock looks like they're paying a big lion's share because we're also 30% of the townships.
True. It works out to, if you look at the statistical breakdown on my first slide, Woodstock, we service about 44% of our clients that we see come from the city of Woodstock. So again, the 31% elevated, hard for me to say. But again, if you look at the breakdown by municipality, Woodstock is certainly 44% carries the largest share. Again, I believe Tillsonburg is the next largest share of people that we speak to, and it's in the teens. So collectively, you would have to add up those percentages. But again, I think it's fairly close when it comes to the breakdown.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation.
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else on the presentation? If not, we can get into pages 94 and 95. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Anthony. Just a really simple one on page 94 in revenue, Bridges to Better Business. We budgeted 5,000 last year, but didn't receive 5,000, but we're budgeting 5,000 again. There's a zero in the actuals for last year. Is that accurate? In revenue at the top, second line, 0000, revenue from Bridges.
Yeah, sorry, your worship, through to Councillor Martin. Our funding from the province is rather inconsistent. So sometimes it comes in, sometimes it does not. Our revenues are up. The reason that we didn't do that is because we did have some sponsorship, and that offsets that amount. So we sort of leave that as a bit of a reserve. Again, from my standpoint, I always want to make sure that I've got a backup for when we're doing, if we have access to a higher profile speaker, someone that we can actually spend a bit more money on. So again, the money is there. But again, it's one of those things that we don't really necessarily know from one year to the next, especially when we're planning the year out, who our keynote speaker or what our expenditures might be. Certainly our expenditures were a little bit more affordable this year because of the market building. But again, it was also a bit of a transition for us this year, being in that new building, seeing if it was going to work. We also sort of had the engineering department that was in there until fairly soon before we were supposed to host the event. So there was also that potential that we were going to have to go off site. So again, in the event that there is any sort of renovation or changes as a result of the proposed economic development renovations to that space, we may need that additional money for that as well. So if that answers your question.
Just a quick follow-up. So I think what I heard is we budgeted $5,000, but you found other ways to fund without having to go to the province for that extra 5,000?
In the 2025 year, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Again, page 94 and 95. Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, I'd like to welcome our city engineer, Harold Dahan. He's gonna be up here for a little while, so let's, a lot of pages.
Mrs. Dahan.
I was debating on saying something, but I didn't. Of course, we're gonna be talking about engineering department, pages 40 to 42, building 38, 39, bylaw 43, 44, parking is 45, 46, transit is 47, 52, and paratransit, page 53. But we will start with your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mayor and council. Yes, this evening I'm here to talk about the sub-departments for the Office of the City Engineer. As you're probably aware, but just review anyway. So there's a building department, which is accounts 0301, engineering department, which is 0303, bylaw of 0304, parking 0307, transit 0709, and paratransit 0710. Those are the 6 departments I'll be talking about. Excuse me. So for building 2025 year in review, we introduced, excuse me, a new position, facility manager, to oversee the maintenance and capital repair of city facilities. You saw the report recently at council for the construction, the annual building report, construction value of 285 million, and versus the 2024 number of 225. Our CBO announced his retirement this year. We've been kind of anticipating it for a while. Unfortunately, he finally pulled the plug. However, we were luckily enough able to promote from within, so we're very happy about that. And we also got some new software to improve tracking and time permit issuance. 2026 objectives, continue to standardize facility maintenance, or I shouldn't say continue that, basically that's one of the first things that our new facility manager is going to be doing. He actually just had a meeting with some of the custodians today to talk about, starting that whole process to make sure basically all the facilities are treated in the same way. We're running the same levels of maintenance and everything. Now that we hired a new CBO, we have to replace our deputy CBO. So we're looking for a replacement there. And we're continuing to try to improve our standard operating procedures for staff and continue with training and development. Notable changes in the budget. You'll notice in the building budget, the biggest increases in wages, and that one was due to collective agreement wage increase, building inspectors moving up a level, return of an FTE from a maternity leave. So just looking at the numbers in general, for revenue, we have permits. 2025, we budgeted $1 million. 2026, we're hoping to get 1.15 million, so a 15% increase. Others, which is basically the contributions from reserves, 2024 was 282,000. 2026 is 269, so going down 4.6%, with a total increase then of 10.7. Expenditures, wrapping up all those, basically 2025 of 1.282 million, 2026 of 1.419 million, or a 10.7% increase. As you probably all know, the building department is self-funded by provincial law. So basically the revenue has to equal the expenditures, which is why we have that, which is how we use the contribution from reserves to zero that out. For engineering, 2025, we managed to complete 100% of all 9 road reconstruction projects and came in about $250,000 under budget. Completed 2 phases of the Dundas reconstruction project. Completed 2 projects on behalf of the county, which helped contribute to record high revenues from the county for that department. Hired a new GIS coordinator and a new special projects and development engineer. The GIS was because of one of our employees left to go to the county, and the special projects and development engineer was because Filippo decided to go to economic development. So We've also started implementing the recommendations that came out of the TMP. We adopted an all-way stop and traffic calming policies. And this year, we're hoping to adopt some more policies, which leads me to our 2026 objectives. This year, we'd like to do a community safety zone policy, a speed limit policy, a review in policy, and as well as school and playground assessment policies. Again, these were our recommendations coming out of the TMP from last year. We're planning on implementing a number of traffic calming measures and PXOs. Matter of fact, Adam's office right now is full of radar speed limit signs, so we're just waiting to get put up. We're hoping to begin construction on the first phase of the Northeast Industrial Park. It's actually out for tender right now. And find a replacement for our development engineer who is retiring at the end of this week. Notable changes in the budget. We have a decrease in the overhead recovered for county capital. This is a direct relationship to capital work that was approved. It is a hit to our budget, and basically 2025 was a record high. As I mentioned, we did a number of two projects that were 100% county costs. So because they basically hire us to manage the project for them, they were a good revenue source last year. Plus, a lot of our road reconstruction projects had a lot of water and sanitary work included in them. This year, we're not doing any projects for the county, and one of our major projects, which is Pittock Park Road reconstruction, has no water or sanitary sewer work involved in it. So you're going to see a big decrease in that revenue item. There's also an increase in the consultant fees. That's basically due to a number of studies that used to be included in the capital budget got moved to the revenue budget. And we're also showing a fee revenue for road permits. We've switched over, or we'll be switching over to charging fees for road permits. So we're going to split the revenues for that between us and Public Works. So looking at the numbers, engineering 2025 was $1,172,000. This year it's dropping, as I said, pretty drastically to 722, or a 38% drop for revenue there. Expenditures for 2025 was 2.7 million, going up to 2.76 million, or a rise of 2.1%. Street lights and traffic lights basically going up $50,000 or 6.2%. And most of that is for hydro and to reflect historical costs. And then there's the miscellaneous other categories of 144,000 going up to 162,000. Total expenditures going up 3.4%. Total net going up 23.1%. And again, it's a bad thing to harp on and remind you of, but that's because of the decrease in revenues. Bylaw Department 2025 year in review. Number of investigations went up 14%. Number of parking tickets issued went up 59%. We updated the property standards and lot maintenance bylaws. Bylaw completed a vacant lot blitz when that was followed up with the policy from the prior year. Excuse me. Bylaw also worked pretty heavily this past year with parks and police service to clean up encampments. They've kind of almost got it down to a fine art now. It's obviously something that has to be done with care and, thought, but they're working hard, they're working well on it. And we're also now doing a majority of the prosecutions in-house rather than hiring a city solicitor to do it. 2026 objectives for the bylaw are to go live with the Administrative Monetary Penalty System, or AMPS, and to update the sign bylaw. Notable changes in the budget. Membership went up $1,300 to allow staff to do prosecutions instead of contracting out the work. And communications and some new equipment is also up to reflect what's needed for the AMP software to go live. So looking at the numbers for revenue, total revenue of $1,000 last year, same for this year, so zero change there. Expenditures in 2025, I forgot to change the numbers there, of 732,000. This year is 750,000, or up 2.4%. for a net increase of 2.4% or $18,000. Parking, notable changes in the budget, revenue from parking violations up due to the increased enforcement in anticipated at AMPS. We're hoping to start that. Like I said, this year, we did a lot of background work last year. Number of things are ready to be signed off right now. Have to bring some bylaw changes to council coming up the next couple months, and then we'll be able to start working on that. And basically, especially in school zones, we should be able to, like in the time it takes to write one ticket, we'll be able to write 20 just by taking pictures and mailing the tickets to the people. So contracts cost, you'll notice, is also up. And that, again, that's due to AMPS, and that's because we're going to have to contract a service. Anybody who wants to appeal their AMPS will have to have a contract a third party to be an unbiased third party to review the appeal requests. So parking revenue, 2025 137,000, 2026 of 197,000, are up 60,000, which is a change of basically like 44%. Expenditures, administration costs from 2025 are up $3,000 or 2.1%. And operations and expenses are up $15,000 for a change of 7.5%. Basically, parking, overall parking net costs going down 22.5%. Transit year in review. We added cameras to the buses to improve security. They've come in handy, quite a number of times already. So glad we have them. We obtained $3.2 million in funding for the next 10 years for bus refurbishment. We began the transit route study, and we finally began the transit automatic wash bay construction, which has been a project in the works for too long, to be honest with you. 2026 objectives, we're hoping to present the transit route study recommendations to council for consideration and install bike racks on the buses. Looking at the numbers for revenue, fares, we budgeted 800,000 in 2025. We're hoping to get that up to 820 next year, or an increase of 2.5%. Miscellaneous revenue of last year was 875,000, bring that up to 903. So total revenue going up 2.8% for transit. And in terms of expenditures, operations, 2025 budget number was 3,492, going up to 4,128,000, or an increase of 6.5%. Administration, basically just over $1 million, going up 21,000, or an increase of 2%. So net increase for transit would be 4.8%. Additions to base budget. Transit is the only engineering budget asking for any changes to the base budget. The first ask is basically we would like to convert 4 part-time drivers to 4 full-time drivers. This would increase the complement of full-time drivers. We're hoping this will decrease our staff turnover a little bit, and promote the drivers to stay with the city of Woodstock. We're having a number of part-time drivers leaving for full-time positions with other municipalities. Because it's a transition from full-time or from part-time to full-time, and the part-time drivers make the same amount as the full-time, there's really no wage increase, but there is benefit increase because the full-timers get benefits. So the increase is about $60,000. And I should mention that there's also a collective agreement obligation maxing out the number of hours we have for part-time staff, and we've had a problem staying under that limit in the last little bit. Transit, the second addition to base budget is to increase lead hand time. We're asking for an additional $46,000 a year to provide for additional hours of lead hand, necessary to provide coverage at all transit hours of operation, and also especially allows for overlap during shift changes Especially it's really helpful when a driver doesn't show up and the lead hand may have to jump into a bus and drive. So it's hard for him to do his lead hand activities and find a replacement driver while he's driving a bus. Excuse me. Paratransit, last year we had a revenue of 45,000. This year we're projecting the same. Operations, operations cost was 820,000. That's basically the cost for us contracting out the provision of the service, going up 41,000 or 5%, and the administration cost of $30,000 going up 3% or 10.7%. So net increase for paratransit is 5.5%. And that is it. Take any questions.
That's it, eh?
Yep.
That's a lot. Any information on any of those slides or questions on any of those slides, sorry? For the city engineer, Councillor Martin?
It's a question from the slide, but it's also a line by line. Do you want me to wait?
No, you can
Okay.
include it then as well.
In transit, and you referred to transit revenues, so I see it in my book on page 47, so transit fares. We budgeted 800,000 this year, but you said you were budgeting 820, we're hoping to get it to 800, but our actuals were 899, 900,000. Why aren't we budgeting 900,000? Was there some anomaly in 2025?
Yes, there was. Actually, the anomaly this year comes from in the fares. We had a organization that owed us from 2024 quite a sum of money, and we finally collected it, and we couldn't put it into 2024 anymore, so it got added into 2025.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for recovering it.
Yeah.
And for the.
Yeah.
Anything else in general on the slides before we go through the sections as well then? Just for those following at home. Seeing none in general, then we'll jump into engineering department. And of course, this is on page 40, 41, and 42. We'll do all three pages. Councillor Schanberg.
Maybe just a question of information since we have Mr. Dahan here, but my question would be is, who does somebody call if there's some lights out on their street, the street lights? I've had a couple people email me or contact through social media about that in the last couple weeks.
Your worship, through the counselor, they can there is a number on our website for them to call. We sub that work out, the maintenance, so they can either call our sub directly or they can just call our office and we'll pass the information on to our contractor. So.
Thank you. Anything else for pages 40, 41, and 42 for engineering department? Before I move along to building? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to building. If we go back to page 38 and 39. Any questions on any of those line items? Seeing none, we'll move along to bylaw. Go to page 43 and 44. Seeing none. We'll go to parking, which is page 45 and 46. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. Parking page 45 under revenue parking violations, 66005000. You mentioned in your presentation that it's up 59%. So we budgeted 55,000 last year, but collected 102. What is the FTE equivalent of people that are out writing tickets under parking violations? where I'm getting at is if you had more people, would that number increase? If you
Increase.
had more FTEs, like where's the sweet spot? Are we at the sweet spot for resources there?
Your worship, through the counselor. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you how many hours a year we're spending on writing tickets. I can tell you that we have 2 contracted parking enforcement officers, and they're 40 hours a week basically. And then we have our other 4 bylaw officers that spend a portion of their day mostly patrolling the school areas in morning and afternoons, doing parking enforcement. I'd have to double check with the bylaw manager to see how many hours a year it works out to be. Knowing that AMPS is coming up, I would hesitate to ask for any more or increase or decrease the hours, because I think, like I said, the introduction of AMPS is going to be able to enable us to write 10 times the amount of tickets that we can right now. So for no additional effort, we should be getting a lot more enforcement. Yep.
Yes, and take note, all you parents dropping your kids off at school. That's all I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
Let your children walk to school, please. Counselor Shanberg.
Yeah, I guess speaking of schools, again, following social media too much as I do, the new Turtle Island School, there seems to be a lot of comments about traffic there and coordinating the so-called kiss and drop off zone and getting people to sort of move in and move off the property quickly. Was there something you can do as far as counting cars or prioritizing how they could go faster, creating a game plan for the school?
Your worship, through the counselor, the issue right now is that every one of those cars is illegally parked or stopped. So we're trying, excuse me, we're trying to ticket right now, every one of them. But like I said, with the current system, by the time they write the one ticket, 9 of the cars are driven off, right? So AMPS will help address that. Plus also, that is going to be, right now we have a school zone policy that council adopted 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. As part of one of the policies coming out of the school and park TMP recommendations, we think would probably end up replacing the school zone policy with a new policy. And that will probably change some of the regulations around the schools also.
Just interested in the news story I saw has 770 students there already. And so that makes it the second biggest school in Woodstock outside of Algonquin as far as the elementary goes and people wanting to drop their children off at school. So that's and I think only 3 school buses are servicing that school too.
I thought I'd heard that every student there was supposed to be walking, but
Yeah, there is 3 school. I talk to the principal every day from Turtle Island.
so.
In fact, I gotta
Yep.
say, I probably hear from every principal some point
Yep.
once a month.
Yep.
On a regular basis. So, and usually they're very cooperative and thanking staff actually in bylaw. So everybody is aware for the cooperation. So it's a challenge.
Yeah. Unfortunately, right now, I shouldn't say this out loud, but some people are of the mind, I'll take the ticket because you're only going to catch me once every 3 weeks. So that'll change when AMPS comes.
It will. It will. Anything else for bylaw before we move along to parking? Or are we on parking? Sorry, we're on parking. My apologies. We're on parking. We're on pages 45 and 46 right now. Anything else? Before we go to transit? Seeing none, we'll go to transit on pages 47. And we'll start with 47, 48. We'll break this one down a wee bit. Counselor Shanberg?
Yes, again, a question through to Mr. DeHaan. Considering there's a chance or an opportunity that the transit report will come out during the calendar year, any kind of a change whatsoever, whether it be days of service or hours of service, they wouldn't occur until 2027 then?
Your worship, through the counselor, yeah, we didn't ask for any changes in hours this year because of the uncertainty of what's going to happen with the possible change of new routes. I suspect that the tentative plan right now is to present the report to council now for consideration as part of the 2027 budget deliberations.
Okay, I'll open it up to questions on pages 47, 48, and 49. Any questions on pages 47, 48, 49? Counselor Lauder.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Mr. Dahan. On page 48 in the bottom, on the coin counting part-time, and doesn't look like there was anything spent in 2025, and it's in again in 2026. They still have that coin counting? I remember that a long time ago.
Your worship, through the council, the machine's not there, but that's generally a journal entry that Treasury usually charges us to cover some of their, yeah. So it's a misnomer, but it is kind of spent. It's a journal entry.
So are we accepting cash on the transit?
Oh, yeah.
Still, okay,
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
that's what I thought. Counselor Martin.
Thank you. Just a question of clarification on what does this line item mean? I'm on page 48, 709, 77101, 0803. Equipment charges own. I'm assuming that word got cut off. We were 1.6 million last year, but it's a zero in the actuals. What is that category?
I'd like to make a joke and say it's my bonus, but I can't do that.
Not in an election year, sir.
No, actually, so, yeah, that number there is actually, we spent 1.75 million. And those costs are all shown, if you look on the equipment starting at the bottom of page 49.
So
and for
this
the
is
next three
where that,
pages.
okay,
Yes.
so that was gonna be my next question is, we look like we broke a bunch of stuff out into more detail.
Right.
So this is where it came from.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Perfect.
Thank you, Counselor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just have a question about the addition to base. Is that okay? Perfect. Through to Mr. Dahan. As far as the 4 part-time drivers converted to 4 full-time drivers, can you tell me how long they've been part-time, these 4 positions, or an approximate?
Hold on a second. Jeff, 5 years?
5 years. Okay. Just I'm finding in a couple other departments as well that these temp positions are just not, sustainable long-term, for all of the reasons that you said too, for staff retention and stuff like that. So I just wanted to understand how long those part-time positions, were. 5 years.
Right.
Okay.
And literally, and not to take advantage of you opening the door to asking the question, but we literally have a posting up all the time for part-time drivers and are constantly training new drivers.
So if I can continue, that was going to be my next question too, is that I think there's also something to be said about the additional staff time into training, whatever the department is, whatever the role is, just to have that high turnover.
Yeah.
And then using, or that human taking those skills with them to then secure a full-time position. So, thank you.
Yep. Our new drivers go through basically 2 to 3 weeks full-time training before they're driving a bus by themselves. So that's 120 hours. Yeah.
A lot of training. Anyone else? Or sorry, we haven't got all the way through. So now we'll open up all the way, pages 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, and 52. So complete section. Any questions on transit at all? On the line items? Or presentation? Counselor Schenberg.
Yeah, question to Mr. Dahan. I guess these bus by bus reports are kind of an asset management scenario on each particular bus?
Your worship, through the counselor. Yes and no. This basically shows what we spent for each bus in terms of all that stuff. And theoretically, the equipment reserve should cover what we spend as well as putting money into a reserve to pay for future replacements. I'm not sure why, for whatever reason, it's broken down for transit. We do the same thing in Public Works for their equipment. But I don't think the operating budget goes into that detail or includes every piece of equipment in Public Works, does it? So anyway, it just tracks what we've actually spent.
Anything on transit before I move to paratransit? Counselor Schadenberg.
Yeah, if I dare ask, what happened to bus number 13?
Bus panel 3, the decommission for a new replacement. It's all one.
I thought maybe it was just a superstition thing.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Pages 47 to 52. Last chance. All right, we'll go to paratransit on page 53. Any questions concerning paratransit? Because some residents may be watching tonight that have some concerns with some recent changes in the
Oh,
paratransit.
Yes, you're right.
Could you just,
Your worship,
tell
yeah,
everybody?
thanks for bringing that up. I should have brought,
Thank you.
I meant to add it to my slides, but yeah, so our provider has just introduced some new software in January to help. Well, for one, it's intended to help our users be able to book rides easier. And it's intended also to make the riding scheduling more efficient. There were some hiccups during the first month or so, in that some riders inadvertently or somehow the software pushed them back, so they kind of lost their rides somehow. But we're pretty sure that the issues have been addressed and things are working smoothly. And I'm hoping that as more and more people start using like the sign up app and stuff like that, that will show even more efficiency and improvements.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Lauder?
Thank you for the paratransit on the revenue. Last year was 45,000 and the actual was 56,000, and we're just going for 45,000 in 2026. Could that not be increased to 55 or 50 or 55,000 revenue?
Your worship, through the counselor, we could. I was feeling a little pessimistic that day, so I decided not to.
He likes to look good next year. Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I have a question that might actually be a Public Works question, so
Okay.
if I cross over, it's about one of the new initiatives on Fleet Department mechanic. We do a lot of our own work on transit buses.
Mhm.
Would this request for that mechanic position be a benefit to transit and cut down on some of those contracted services, the amount that we're sending our transit buses out? Or are they unrelated? And I should wait till Thursday to ask my question.
Your worship, through the counselor, I definitely think you want to ask this question again on Thursday, but my understanding is that it would help help make things a little smoother, like, and I believe me, I'm not bad mouthing Public Works. I know they're busy, but we've had a couple of issues in the past year where we have 7 routes, we've had 7 buses. So, yeah, we prefer to avoid situations like that.
As a follow-up, because sometimes they're parked waiting to get repairs, minor or significant, or being sent out, because we don't do our own refurbishment of buses.
No,
here, do we?
refurbished buses are sent out, and those do take an extended, like, months, right?
Right. But
But
general maintenance, wear and tear, oil
Yes,
changes,
yeah,
tire
yeah.
pressures, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is sometimes getting backlogged.
Yeah, Now, I did have a talk with the Director of Public Works, you know, like I said, we've had a couple times where we were kind of short. And I said, look, I don't care what it costs. If you have to send it out, I know it's more expensive. But if that's what we need to do to keep 7 buses on the road, that's what we need to do.
Okay, but we did take over maintenance of our Woodstock Police
Yep.
fleet. So we added that in as a, you know, as a service.
Mhm.
But it might have maybe been to the detriment of transit buses.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure, you know, I don't know how they schedule all their work but I know we have had occasion where there has been a bus waiting to get serviced. And because we were short buses, we had to pull it out. Now, we would never pull out a bus that wasn't safe, but if it was something like the washer fluid needed to be topped up or, you know, something silly, right?
Yeah,
You know, as long as it wasn't a safety issue, we pulled buses back onto the road.
That's a very helpful answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for paratransit and finish off Mr. Dahan for the evening? Seeing none. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to welcome our Manager of Information Technology, Chris Grattan. Welcome.
Hey everyone, good evening. I was gonna produce a PowerPoint, but I have 4 core focuses here, and typically 2 of them, we don't really talk about our internal technologies or platforms. So it would have led me down to a 1-pager, which I can just talk about without having to make a PowerPoint. The 4 main components we're gonna be working on through IT this year is to continue leveraging the investment that we've made into cybersecurity, as well as the ongoing investment. And to tie with that, the ongoing user education for end users. The other area in which we are going to be focusing on is a complete software hardware refresh company-wide, which is going to be a massive undertaking. The next, which we can talk about, is removing end-of-life software components and dedicating IT resources to build new platforms. And then the third component is, I guess I should have made a note on this third component because I can't remember it. Anyway, those are the key components that we're going to be working on. And I have spoken with everybody at length with regards to what my budget entails, what we do, why we need it, why we don't need it. And I am here to answer any questions from anybody, should you have comments, questions, concerns in any other line items.
I'll certainly remind all of council, we don't want to talk about anything security wise in a public forum, but I thank you for taking time out to speak with each of us individually on
Okay,
questions.
awesome.
But is there anything overall general before we let them off for the evening? Yeah, it's a long time to wait for. Yeah. I think that's it. Thank you very much. And again, I appreciate your time speaking with all of us
Yeah, thank you very
and
much. Have a nice
answering
evening.
questions. Next up, I'd welcome our Chief Slager from Fire Department. Welcome, and this is page 54 and 55.
Good evening, Your Worship, and I will be longer than Chris. For the 2026 revenue budget presentation, I'm going to forego the review of the services of the fire department of what we've done in 2025. The intent is that for the first meeting in March, I'll bring back our annual review and we'll present that to council at that time, just in the interest of time going through for this evening. So with the review of our proposed budget of what we're looking at for 2026, the first page I go through every year. It deals with our expenditures for wages. I do take the opportunity to point this out. I have no control over this as an individual. This is our contractual obligation to the members of staff that we have through. I do also want to point out that you'll note the asterisk with 2025 and 2026. As was mentioned last year's presentation, we are currently in a collective agreement negotiation process. The current collective agreement expired in 2020, at the end of 2024. So any of the rates that are showing up there for salaries reflect the 2024 rate. There are reserves set aside within other departments, within finance, that if there, when a collective agreement comes to fruition, that amount will carry over into the actuals at the end of the year that it comes into play. So when we go through and we look through everything that's through here, we are looking at salaries, maintaining the 2024 rate through changes of either through advancements in the ranks of our probationary or fourth, third, second, and first class firefighters. We're seeing a difference of $271,700 or $270 or 3.77% change in the base salaries. Over time, this has been an area that we've been focusing on over the past number of years. If I made it a little longer, if I'd thrown 2023 up, this would have looked even better. We were over $350,000 in overtime in 2023. We're able to bring that back down to the 220,000 is what we're looking at. We're still hoping to continue to have that decline. From last year's budget to this year, we're down 12% with respect to that. On-call pay is a negotiated item underneath the collective agreement. As I said, we're still in the 2024 rates, so there's no change there. Statutory holidays, when we get to the line by line, there'll be some discussion, I'm sure, with the 2025 actuals there. Because of that, we did reflect the 2026 to bump it up a bit. In 2024, that is the typical amount that we tend to go with the actuals for this is the full amount that we would pay to the firefighters who are, if they chose not to utilize any of their 11 statutory holidays as time off, and they requested to be paid out for every one of them. OMER, CPP, EI, and WSIB are legislative, and then the health benefits and EI, extended health, are through the collective agreement. Moving on to the portion of the budget that I control. When we're looking at the supplies, repairs, and maintenance, overall, compared to what our actuals were last year in 2025 to 2026, it's a $27,040 increase or 3.26%. Now, I will caveat this because when you get into the presentation and look at the numbers, the actuals of last year did include the fire protection grant amount of just over 16,000 in that. So if we remove that from last year's actuals, our difference actually winds up being around $42,000 from 2025 to 2026 as to what our requests were at budget time. That bumps us up to about 3.4% of an increase with respect to there. Contributions to reserves through or payment for dispatch. So dispatch, emergency preparedness, and our reserves, we are holding the same as per last year, $990,000. It is a significant amount. We do remind council, $775,000 of that is our reserves, or contribution to reserves for our fire apparatus, which unfortunately continue to grow, as council recalls from our capital presentation in the fall. So total expenditures of what we're looking at in 2026, we're looking at $12,193,810, a difference of $370,740 or 3.14%. At the present time, the 2026 sundry amount of $15,000, removing that changes us to about a 3.28% change over last year. While 2025's amount, the sundry amount, did include the fire protection grant, that was funding that went directly towards bunker gear, which is an operating budget line. That's why it was included there. However, as was presented in our capital, or we received, this year's fire protection grant funding that we received is going towards a capital project, so it will not be included in the operating budget setup here. When we look at the overall budget of the $12,178,810, when we compare that to the tax levy without additions to base budget where we're at right now, you'll show we like to see again a decline. We're still at a dropping year over year, 13.98%. However, I do have to go remiss that asterisk that goes beside it, this does not include wages or any change there. If I could hold the 2024 numbers, that'd be great to see us dropping down 1% each year. Actuals will become more accurate once the collective agreement is reached. When I look through the base budget, I do like to go kind of for council, try to get ahead of your line by line, show where we're seeing the increases and give some information beforehand. Some of the growths that we're seeing on the line by line will be associated with reallocation of expenses. Through discussions with finance, we have reallocated anything to do with meetings and luncheons in item or line 170 and conferences and seminars for 318, all and consolidate them into the single line. When I say consolidate, typically our fire training division and our fire prevention division would cover these costs within their individual budgets. We would not have the line by line. We've asked them as an offset for some of the increases in the movements that they wanted, and to make it more streamlined from a budgeting and an auditing standpoint, that anything that deals with meetings, luncheons, anything that deals with conferences and seminars for any department or division within our the fire service is captured within these accounts. One-off increases for this year, you'll note, seems like a significant amount, the $8,500 with the telephone. This is for a one-time cost of a hardware replacement for the cell phones that we utilize within the department. We currently have all three of our prevention staff, our training officer, 2 admin staff, and then we have 3 cell phones that are used by the officers in suppression that are 4 years old. They're at the point where the battery life on them is very poor, and it's also the operating cycle on them at 4 years. You're at the time frame there to replace them. With that, we are not looking at getting everybody, new iPhone 17s. We're not looking at the top line. We will be working with IT department as to the most cost-effective way to provide a cell phone at a budget price, but still have something new. Growths associated with the cost of business increase. Unfortunately, anything that has to do with fire, they like to charge us extra for. We're a smaller industry that doesn't have a lot through. When we're looking at some of these items, we'll kind of touch base on. Caretaking supplies, we're seeing an increase of $2,000 with respect to that. These are the products that our staff use to maintain the facilities, cleaning and that type of thing. Council has, over the past few years, increased our complement with that, and with that, it does increase. Things get dirtier, things get used up a lot more that we go through there. Consumables, we're looking at an increase in this. This is something that, while it's an increase in this year, there are also some initiatives that we're planning to have in place. Consumables in this line will include items like foam that we use on the fire trucks when we're dealing with suppression activities. It's an additive that goes into the water that helps deal with our suppression capabilities when we're applying it to scenes. One of the aspects we're looking at this is increased training amongst our staff as to when it is more appropriate to use foam, but also what is going to be considered over and above the standard application that we would have. And being able to use that and charge it back to the incident. So all of our trucks on the tanks, they carry a single pail of foam or the quantity of that on a truck. If that's considered a standard, what would be needed for a response? If we are at a scene and we need to go through 2, 3, 4 pails, and these pails are expensive, the additional material would then be billed back to the property owner through their insurance for the response of that. That would allow us to get some cost recovery with respect to this. While we don't have a process in place for that, we have the ability to be able to complete that within the regulating bylaw that council has approved for the fire service. Truck maintenance and repairs, we're continuing to see an increase, not only just in the cost of buying new trucks, but in cost of buying materials and equipment for them. The $25,000, unfortunately, is the increase of, as we're looking at the balances of what we're doing and what the cost is for our trucks going forward. Fire prevention, they've put in a request for $3,000 on top of the reallocation of some of the funds for their conferences and meetings and such like that with respect to it. You will probably have noted that there has been a significant increase over the past couple of years of the presence of advertising and fire safety information on a larger scale within the public that our fire prevention division has done. As the city continues to grow, there are more information and more areas that we need to target and get that information out to. It also, the diversity of our culture is increasing, and that propagates the requirement for us to provide this fire safety information in additional languages, which duplicates the amount of material that needs to be created over 30 years ago, where we could have gotten away with French and English. Utilities, heat, electricity, and hydro, collectively, we have an increase of $2,500. Again, we use what we use, unfortunately, there. Purchase services, we're looking at an increase of $20,000. These are, again, items that will include services such as our records management software, things that we use through with that. We'll be using rental facilities for our radio towers, snow removal. There's a great business if anybody's ever looking for something to get into. I cannot believe the cost of what snow removal is anymore. It continues to climb year over year. We're looking this year in 2025 alone over $30,000 just for our two stations. So when we're moving forward with that, we're having to see the increases to clear things through. The personal protective equipment line, we have an increase of $5,000 in the request. Although when you're looking at the line by line, it doesn't maybe come out that way. Last year's amount that showed in that had the increased, the fire protection grant amount added into there. So the actual had the extra $16,000 in it. So if we remove that and go to our baseline request, which in 2025, I believe was 70,000 or 75,000, we're looking at an increase of 5,000. Again, bunker gear, all fire gear is starting to go up. A single set of bunker gear, and we look at replacing 10 a year to maintain the lifespan of them for all of our firefighters. A single set of bunker gear is nearly $5,000. These aren't cheap pieces of equipment. Reductions, I'd like to wish that there was a lot more in there. We try to trim where we can. General insurance, this is an item that we go year over year. We are seeing a drop of $4,000. One significant aspect, we had a reserve truck or a truck that had an older truck that we kept as a training piece of equipment at the fire hall. We had to license it so that it could still be operated on the road if we needed to move it to Board of Works for service or transport it. It finally ended its life and we were able to sell it off. We no longer need to insure it, along with maintaining the exact costings by working with our clerk's department to see what the costs were there. Office supplies, we've dropped that down 1,000, trying to trim some there. The radio system maintenance and repairs is dropped 25,000 from 2025. However, it is in line with what our standard requests are. The 2025 request, if council recalls, had a one-time increase of 25,000 that was for replacement of some batteries and UPS within our main infrastructure of the system. That was costing that was with a previous service provider. We were able to switch over to a different service provider. And as part of a larger project, council recall, we came and we received a permission, or we had a report to council for it to be considered out of capital costs instead of out of a revenue budget for that same equipment, that same repair. So we're bringing us back down, pardon me, to what our standard request would be. Now, additions to base budget. We've heard a lot about from a lot of departments, and you'll hear more on Thursday, that when we're looking at the additions to base budget, this is a sensitive area because we are in a very tight society right now. And we do respect the fact that council has a very challenging job when you're looking at all of these as a whole. I have the unenviable position with us that our positions, unfortunately, due to collective agreement requirements, tend to be a little bit more expensive than some of the others. However, I, like every one of my other compatriots that have come up and done the presentations for their additions, we're bringing these because this is what we feel individually as our service. This is what we need to bring forward. I just ask you to bring that into consideration when you're looking at these. The first item that we want to discuss is our Woodstock Fire Department organizational wellness strategy. This is a proactive program to strengthen our overall organizational wellness. It's part of the strategic planning we've got through the legislatively required PTSD prevention planning. And one of the outcomes and the intent of this is to build sustainable systems and policies that support long-term mental health. This is a program that we're looking at that is in line and by the same provider that is currently running something like this at the Woodstock Police Service. When we're looking at the costs related to this, of a 2026 levy impact of 60,000 and a 2027 levy impact of 70,000, we are looking long-term of this being a 3-year program because this is a build upon setup. It may seem like a significant amount. I admit that $60,000 and $70,000 is. When I look at our staffing, we within the fire service, us specifically in the city of Woodstock, we have 3 members who are currently off on PTSD related WSIB. When I look at the costing for that, that's $350,000 in wages for members I do not have at my station. If I can look at investing 60,000 in a year and 70,000 in another to help our newer staff and our existing staff become, strengthen themselves, improve their wellness, allow them to gain the tools that they may not face the same challenges that some of their coworkers have right now, and are able to stay at work and find their way through that in a capable way, the means will justify the ends. This is a front-loaded, but at the tail end, it'll be there. A fire inspector position is one that we're looking at. This is something that we have talked about in previous years. Council will recall that in the fire master plan that was presented in May of 2025, this was an item that was one of the items that were represented there. The fire master plan recommended looking at 2 immediate or relatively immediate positions added into fire prevention to go through with it. When on a review of what we have, our staffing levels are below what we need to achieve the overall goal. We currently have 2 staff that perform inspections and investigations of the Ontario Fire Code. The Fire Master Plan recommended an inspection schedule for buildings beyond the required request or complaint, which is the legislative requirements underneath the province. By having an additional fire inspector, this will improve our ability to meet the needs of a risk-based targeted inspection program, which aligns with the community risk assessment that was also created and presented at the time of the Fire Master Plan. We would be looking at this as being a 6-month position, looking at, by the time we go through the posting and hiring, it would be a July start. So the levy impact for a probationary fire inspector of 47,370 for the first year, the 6 months. And then in 2027, the first year of a full wage and benefit cost of 96,590. This would increase our prevention complement from 3 to 4, having 3 people who are certified and qualified to be able to do the fire inspection programs. The final addition to base budget that we have was also a fire master plan recommendation. At present, we're asking for a second or a third, management position, which would be in the hat of a second deputy fire chief. Right now, within the service, we have 3 divisions that are with 60 total staff reporting to a single deputy. Our fire suppression, our fire prevention, and our fire training divisions report to a single position. We are also looking at expanding and including the requirement that the deputy and I share for the city's emergency management program. We just don't have the ability to be able to manage all of these things underneath of it. When we look at the supervisory staff and the level of division within the rest of the city, there is no other department that has less than 3 supervisors with 60 staff. We are the lone with that. We view our suppression, our prevention, and our emergency management as very different organizations, very different divisions and responsibilities. So with looking at the second deputy fire chief position, we are able to, the intent is to divide the oversight of the fire service. We'd have 1 deputy fire chief responsible for suppression and training, which are 2 positions that are akin to each other. And then the second deputy chief would be overseeing our fire prevention division and the emergency management training and program for the city of Woodstock. While they are 2 different focal points, they have very similar line management style. This would allow us to also continue the development of the City of Woodstock Emergency Management Program. The items such as our annual requirements, our business continuity planning, everything else that's required under the province to maintain that. The levy impact for the first 6 months, again, this would be looking at a July hire, is with wage and benefits of $91,380. The 2027 impact, again, with wages and benefits of $197,070 for that position. With that, I will turn it over to council for any questions and our line-by-line review.
Thank you. Any questions of council? Councillor Tate.
Through the chair, I know we went back and forth on this, but something just reminded me on the consultant services. So the 60,000 for the first year, I understand it would be more money because of the setup, you said?
Your worship, through to Councillor Tate, correct. So when we're looking at the initial onset of the program, This isn't a cookie cutter program that this is, here's everything that you're going to do. Any sort of department, any emergency service, anything, do these steps, and that gives us the layout. This is an opportunity for the consultant to come in, look at the Woodstock Fire Department, look at the layout that we have, the staffing models that we have, and create a program by communication with our staff and with other responsible parties, and develop and start the program in that year. So it's not just the development of the program, it would be the development and the initial launch of it in the 2026 year.
So I guess from our conversation, so it's going up to 70,000 the next year. Now, I understand the police, theirs is paid for a grant. They got a grant for it, so they don't pay for it. The taxpayers don't pay for it. So in 2027, so from what I understand, somebody at Roma had said they talked to some provincial people, and there is grant money. So 2027, would you look at applying for a grant for it for that year? And is there any way to combine with emergency services so we don't have two separate, because it's still emergency services?
Your worship, through to Councillor Tate, absolutely. Any opportunity where a grant becomes available at the provincial level where we're able to obtain finances to be able to offset this, we're going to be looking at this. This actually, a lot of this programming came about as the province had initiated a grant at the beginning of 2025 for mental health services. We didn't have a plan in place to be able to make application or something significant. And we didn't want to just throw something, say, give us some money. We don't have an idea of what we're really going to do with that. We wouldn't have been approved. Now, that grant was well used and well respected through. So what we do anticipate, and we are seeing within the fire service, is an increase in these grant opportunities. So we will be looking at those and taking advantage. Once the initial onset of the program comes in, the ongoing maintenance of this program deals with one-on-one meetings between the counselor and the staff, which is something that at that time, that is something that we can definitely work with the other emergency services who are utilizing this same support worker and program to combine the cost and the timing, rather than having it be, well, if the person's here and they're part of it, why not be, well, you're dealing with both police, paramedic, fire, whoever else is using it on those same days and have that opportunity. Any chance we can spread that butter over more toast, I like to say, let's do it. So
I can just continue along that same line, recognizing, well, all your additions to base budget have significant ongoing costs. With the wellness strategy, is this only 26, 27? And that's planned it, or will that continue on as well?
Your worship,
What do you
through the question. So the 26 and the 27 are the scheduled and the program development and administration. At the end of the 2027, the program, the way it's set up is it follows through and becomes more of a one-on-one or an individual counseling. That is something that we look at. What's the utilization of it going to be and needed? So there may not be the development of sessions that are given to the group as a whole, or areas where they need to be doing consultations with the department and develop things. This is where we'd be segueing into referencing back to the question that Councillor Tate had, the opportunity of it being sessions where they're able to meet. There will be ongoing costs, but it'd be looking at how are we able to share that between multiple departments.
Thank you. Councillor Martin?
I guess I had a similar question through you on, similar to the flavor of Councillor Tate's question of spreading that butter over more toast. Is there an opportunity for fire departments across all of Oxford County, all of the member municipalities, or is that a totally different cat because they are all volunteer? Are they all volunteer?
In the county
Yeah.
of Oxford.
Is that a different animal, or is there an opportunity for this to be a fee for service to other services within our geography, to, maybe do some cost recovery? And then I guess in addition to that question is, how does this fit in with paramedics? Because I know that they're also doing a lot of work in this vein.
Your worship, through to Councillor Martin. So the aspect of how we expand it beyond, the County of Oxford does have a Peer Connect group already that we are a part of that has a certain level. When we're dealing with the mental health and the wellness of our staff, we have multiple different levels of what's available to them based on what's there. The scope of this program, the social worker, I believe, has been in touch with different organizations that are around through here. When we initially met with them, we asked for what was it costing for a 3-year program rather than a one-off. We wanted to invest in kind of show our staff that this was something we wanted to, it's not a, here's the newest, latest presentation, take the information, and then you're never going to hear about it again. Show that we're looking at it. Budgetary wise, I don't know how it would play out for the volunteer services that we have in the area as to how it sits there. It may be challenging. They're aware that we're going through this, the challenge of what the information is there and the onset, whether they want to expand into it, that's going to be up to them, and we'll have conversations. As far as the fee for service of us kind of charging them, it's not our service to sell to them. This is something we've contracted to be able to provide the service to us. I don't know how the development of the program, which is what year 2026 and 2027 would expand to, say, the city of Tillsonburg or the town of Tillsonburg, town of Ingersoll, their different departments. This would be very detailed for City of Woodstock full-time fire services. I'm sure it could be massaged. It does wind up, again, going back to the question of the subsequent years of if we're looking at the social worker is here to be able to make available for appointments to meet with staff. That's something I think that could be expanded beyond if those that are involved in the program.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Counselor Martin.
I had another totally different question, something that you raised, but I'm actually going to get someone else to answer the question. You raised, I think it was $20,000 on snow removal.
30.
30,000,
Oh, no,
yeah, sorry.
we're like 6,000 6,000 a month.
Yeah. So have we, it makes me ask the question, I'm assuming that we contract services for many of our facilities. Have we ever done an analysis on, and presented to council, what it would look like if we did it internally? Has that ever been considered? I have to believe, well, you know what, it depends on the winter. I have to believe that on a winter like we've just had, it would be cheaper, but I guess was it 2 winters ago when we had hardly any snow, we might have people.
Sticky. Your worship, through to Councillor Martin, we do contract out parking lot snow maintenance. It is a bulk tender, and we do it for a variety of reasons. There are differing times of needs of service for clearing for each of our facilities. In terms of our own staff's ability to respond, they are constrained. Their priorities have to be in other areas, whether it's on the roads, clearing the roads, our equipment on the roads, as well as some of our other facilities. The parks have to get to the Park Street frontages, and so and City Hall. So they do have priorities that would frustrate their ability to get to all of these locations in a snow event. And of course, as you say, in Mother Nature will throw you bad ones and throw you light ones. And having all of that equipment on hand and all of the manpower to respond to Mother Nature's whims can be very expensive. So it is far better to have a balance of both contract service as well as our own fixed service.
So I guess a follow-up question, we have analyzed it or we have not analyzed it?
We have found a level through years of experience. So that's how I would characterize it.
Counselor Tate.
Yeah, just through that, I think the cost would be out of this world for us because the reason the cost is so expensive is the insurance that you have to cover to do the snow removal. So there's very few companies that can afford it anymore. So if we were doing our own, it would be added to our insurance. And I can't imagine what that premium would be. And everything is to a specific, like the contract that we had, we would have to do the same thing. So it would make no sense for us to do it in-house. It's way better to get it contracted. I know it's expensive, but it's expensive for everybody.
If I may, through to Councillor Martin. In years previous, we had worked with the Director of Public Works, Dan Locke, while he's here, and we had the same contractor. We're utilizing the same one that they had through there. We found out as the 2025 season was coming that they had chosen probably due to the cost of insurance, that they were no longer going to be providing that service. So came beginning of October when things were getting colder, we were scrambling, which a lot probably were. So for this year, we were underneath a contract or an agreement just to make sure that we've got it. But it is one of the aspects that we're looking at, both finding out what the other facilities in the city, who do they utilize? But with the emergency service, we want to ensure that we're getting the timing of the response. We have historically found some issues where a heavy snow comes and they're getting the parking lots of the retailers, but we're the ones that need to get out of the building for safety, and we can't. Like, we've got 1.5 feet of snow. Fire trucks will get through anything, but there's still ice and snow on that. So trying to find that balance, and sometimes we have to pay that extra cost to get the time of service.
Thank you. Any questions? Again, we're on page 54 and 55. And I think you answered most of my questions on your line, my line to line through your presentation, so.
That's my goal.
Mhm. Anybody have any other questions? Or, of course, additions to base budget questions? Guess I have one. You talked about the deputy chief having 60 officers reporting to, but there's a captain in between, correct? They're not
No,
a direct report.
Your worship, through to the question, correct. Well, my viewpoint with that is it's not as a direct report. We have 60 staff underneath of a single reporting point. And when I look at that through the rest of the departments that we have in within the city, we'll look at areas that may have 55 staff that will have 5 supervisors. Like, so they're dividing up and they're going through what we that's how I'm kind of looking at it in a sense.
So how many captains, how many?
So within our organizational chart, your worship, is in the suppression division, there are 4 shifts. So each shift has 1 captain, 2 lieutenants, and then the 11 firefighters on each shift.
So there is captains and lieutenants in between.
For if you're looking at the direct reporting, however, yeah, so, but they'd all, when I come through it, if we look at in that sense, the deputy chief for that one division is overseeing the responsibility of the actions of that entire 56 people.
Again, just wanted to make
Yep.
sure staff didn't think there was 60 people going to one person on a daily basis. May feel like it. Okay, any other questions at all on light items? Like I said, they're explained pretty well through your presentation. Seeing none? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, your worship. And in closing, I appreciate it. I understand our additions are expensive, and I appreciate council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And last for this evening, our CAO, David Creary. This is the CAO budget and the planning budget. So he's going to go over page 98 and 56 respective. Welcome.
Thank you, your worship, council. We're 2.5 hours in, so I'd like to make this a little more interactive, so feel free to ask any questions as we go. Please interrupt, and it's getting late, so. Okay, well, first we'll just cover the CAO budget, page 98. Essentially, this budget covers the wages for CAO, the shared cost of our senior administrative assistant, Ann Ash, shared costs for our deputy CAO, city clerk, Amy Humphreys. That is the majority of what makes up this budget. The other large item is the corporate legal fees. This does vary from year to year. Currently holding around the 70,000 mark. This is primarily corporate matters with the city solicitor, Derek Truelove, has taken over from Mr. McCackey. And so it covers essentially corporate matters as well as real estate matters. If there are any questions on this budget?
Any questions of council on the CAO's budget? Again, page 98 in your booklet. Seeing none, then
Okay.
planning, page
We'll move
56.
on to planning.
Thank you.
Planning budget, page 56. So this is kind of a strange budget. It includes planning revenue related to zone change application fees, committee of adjustment, another planning application. That revenue resides in the clerk's department because they do all of the handling and the processing of those minor variance applications. So this captures zone change application revenue. The expenditures that are in this budget primarily relate to the legal fees and services to defend decisions of council at the Ontario Land Tribunal. That I have kept at $10,000. You'll note in 2025, it was overspent at roughly $25,000. And that relates to the 2 Ontario Land Tribunal hearings that were held in 2025. The first one being 401 Lakeview, and the second one being 18 to 20 DeLater Street, which was the 4-plex going to a 7-plex. So that covers the cost for the solicitor as well as the planner for both of those hearings. So rather than chase the eventuality of a number, I've just held it at the 10,000. Difficult one to budget for because circumstances can arise with difficult planning applications, can put council at odds with planning recommendations, and these things can materialize without any warning. So it's all a guess. The remaining expenses in this budget are actually invoiced by the Oxford County Planning Department relating to their costs of processing these planning applications. So if there's any questions on that budget.
Okay. Is there any questions on planning? Seeing none? Oh, sorry, Counselor Martin?
I do apologize. I didn't have it highlighted. Advertising, planning services, advertising. We budgeted 3,000 last year, but only spent 400, but we're budgeting 300 again. Is that the cost to mail out?
Your worship, through to Councillor Martin, unfortunately, these are all costs that we get invoiced by the County of Oxford. The billing cycles aren't regular. So it would be public notice for zone change matters.
Right.
But it is all invoices from Oxford County Planning Department.
But the $400 that we actually spent last year, is that an anomaly that
They would have come through an invoice from that planning department.
so is it unusual that it was that low?
Your worship, through to Councillor Martin, these expenses vary considerably if you track back through the years. And so they are very much chasing unknowns. They're not significant, but they do tend to be sporadic.
Okay. Anyone else for planning? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay, well, then that is.
So, sorry, there are some more, your worship.
Okay.
We've got a few additions to base budget I just want to review. Your worship, so the additions to base budget, we've put forward a few recommendations, financial sustainability and reserve contributions. You heard about the Culture Master Plan this evening in the museum presentation. Then there is a North Woodstock Community Complex Reserve Fund recommendation to raise $1 million, provides council with an opportunity to begin setting aside funds for the proposed North Woodstock Recreation Facility. The amount that you choose, you can raise any amount you so choose. The city is contracted with MJMA Architects. It's a firm that's widely recognized as experts in the design of recreation facilities to complete design development of the project. It's going to provide us with conceptual floor plans and building elevations. The work is expected to commence in the next month, and it will include public feedback, and it'll take about 6 to 9 months to finish this work. With concepts in hand, the opportunity to fundraise and seek sponsorships for support for the project will be easier, which is why we've also suggested a $75,000 carve out of any money that council raises, if any at all, to support the development of a fundraising and a sponsorship strategy for this project. You may hear more about this in the Parks and Recreation budget presentation as well. The next 3 recommendations all relate to increases in the amount raised each year to support state of good repair, which is basically taking care of our existing capital assets that we already own. Could be roads, could be streetlights, it could be buildings. The first recommendation is to increase the annual amount raised for the repairs to municipal building reserve by $300,000. The benefit of this is twofold. First, it replaces debt financing in the 2026 capital budget that relates to the start of the replacement of the community complex roof. Secondly, this will increase the annual amount raised for repairs to municipal buildings on an ongoing basis from $450,000 to $750,000. The second recommendation is again to increase that contribution by $200,000. The same twofold benefits, except this just relates to the Cowan Park Sportsplex turf replacement project. It will again replace financing that's in the 2026 capital budget for this project. The third recommendation is to increase the amount raised each year from what's known as capital out of revenue. Each year, funds are raised in the year and used in that same year for capital project spending. And in 2026, that amounts to $4.5 million. So this recommendation is a bit different from the previous ones in that it isn't a recommendation to raise funds to a specific reserve. This raises funds in the year to be spent in that year for capital project financing to go and finance any project anywhere within that capital program. It doesn't have to be specific to an area. Now, our own purposes 2026 capital budget was 29 million. And looking forward into the 4-year forecast, they're all higher than 29 million, much higher in some cases. So raising $4.5 million a year of a $29 million budget is a relatively small percentage. So if we look back to the asset management plan, council will have seen these numbers in June of 2025 with the adoption of the latest asset management plan. And again, in the 2026 capital budget preamble, this lists each service area, the investment requirements annually to maintain state of good repair, and the current available funding annually, with the difference between those two being the financing gap. And you can see our annual financing gap is about 10.8 million. So what we've brought to council is a recommendation to increase the amount that we raise annually by 1.5 million. So that would essentially have the effect of reducing the financing gap, reducing it from 10.8 to 9.3. But it's important to note that this council has made great progress in this term of council towards reducing that annual financing gap. The most significant achievement is raising 800,000 annually to eliminate the reliance of debt financing for our annual road reconstruction program. What that means is you've got us to the starting line. It means any new dollar that you raise goes to reduce that $5.6 million financing gap going forward. But you did more than that. You also increased the amount raised for the asphalt resurfacing work. You established and approved an annual funding for bridge work, as well as streetlight work. So in past budgets, the focus has been on roads investment. In this budget, we're shifting the focus by making recommendations to make investments in repairs to municipal buildings, by raising 500,000 specific to repairs to municipal building, and raising 1 million, which could be any number. The 1 million is not fixed. Council can raise any number it so wishes on any of these. Raising 1 million in capital out of revenue allows that money to gravitate to its greatest need. So why are we saying it's time to focus on municipal buildings? Well, when we look at 2027 and 2028 roof replacements alone, Reeves Community Complex. The community complex opened in 1996. That makes it 30 years old this year. It still has its original roof. It has served its life. But we also have roofing projects at Cowan Sportsplex. We have roofing projects engineering main building and the transit storage garage. Estimated cost over those 2 years, $3.7 million. That will require debt financing unless we find ways to raise the amount that we raise annually and look to squeeze as much as we can out of these roof lives to avoid the need for debenture financing, which is of course the preferred approach when it comes to state of good repair of our existing capital assets. So just in summary, in debt, our 2026 principal and interest gross repayment is 2.82 million. The 2026 current approved capital budget financing using debt is 3.3 million. And 2026 approved and or issued debt obligation principal only currently stands at 26.3 million. And your worship, that is the end of my presentation, but I just have one final thing to raise with council. There was one addition to base budget that slipped past me. You will hear about it on Thursday. This was my mistake. It was presented. It is in the parks area. There was a request to convert part-time hours in the arena to full-time hours, and it was missed in the additions to base budget list. I missed it. So I don't want you to be caught by surprise on Thursday when Mr. Connors comes forward with his budget presentation. That's my error. He will be bringing that forward. It is a conversion. It is along the same theme that you're seeing with many of the requests this year, whether there's recommendations to shift either from contracted work, from temporary labor work, or part-time work to full-time. With it, I'll take any questions, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I just want to get back to the debt discussion, and of course I lost my page here. So the 500,000, the 300,000 plus the 200,000, if that were to be approved, the benefit is we're asking people to pay today rather than paying the interest on that over time, which my calculations on my trusty amortization calculator would be about $120,000 over, assuming it's 10 years at 4 point whatever percent. So that's the rationale. That's the
Yes.
benefit.
That's the benefit, yes.
And then the same with the $1 million. If we did $1 million or any number between 0 and $1 million, the rationale is we're saving people future
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, your worship, through to Councillor Martin, we're looking at a $10.8 million financing gap for state of good repair for things that we own today. Without trying to bridge that gap, we do face the prospect of needing to borrow money to maintain things that we own today in a state of good repair. This council, this community faces some very significant growth-related recreation projects, which will need the issuance of debt. And so if we are issuing debt to keep what we own today in good shape, it will reduce our ability to issue debt for the new things that this community is seeking.
Any other questions of the CAO on either page 98, 56, or additions to base budget? Seeing none, thank you. Well, this is all for presentations tonight. We'll hear from the remaining departments at the special budget meeting scheduled for Thursday, February 26th at 5 p.m. I'd really like to thank staff, not only preparing these budgets, but for also being here, willing to answer questions. You know, department heads as well as support staff have been here. We've had a full house, so thank you all so much for being here. And we will be voting on this March 19th. We'll be debating and voting on, so nothing until that time. But from here, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Sorry. Councillor Leatherwell, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.